optimistic wife Kim. Yeah, but most people didn't win, I moaned. They didn't get out of the rat race. They didn't learn anything. All they did was get frustrated. I did my best to make it simple, said Spock. I don't know if I can make it any easier without losing the objectives for playing the game. Well, let's get the boxes into the car and go home. Kim and I leave for Hawaii tomorrow. We'll have to decide if we go forward with this project or shut it down. For the next week, Kim and I would get up, have our coffee, and walk on the beach. One morning, I would be overly enthusiastic, ready to continue with the project. The next morning, I would awake depressed, ready to shut the project down. This went on for a week. It was a horrible vacation. The reason I spend so much time talking about this period is that it was a very tough time for me. When people say they have fears about taking risks and going forward on a project, well, so do I. Kim and I were in turmoil during this period of time. It was go or no go. It was put up or shut up. It was live our mission or just go back to making money. Kim and I both believed that many of the important lessons that Rich Dad had taught me had been transferred into our new game. We knew we had to move forward. Spock, Kim, and I decided to go through the eye of the needle. We had transferred this knowledge I had learned from Rich Dad and placed it in a tangible product. This took place in the summer of 1996. Kim and I then went forward and hired a graphic artist to bring the game to life. He then shipped his work to a game manufacturing company in Canada. In November 1996, the commercial version of the game was played at a friend's investment seminar in Las Vegas, Nevada. The game worked. Participants loved the game. The paradigm shifts we wanted were happening. Immediately, we flew to Singapore to another friend's investment workshop. Once again, the game did its magic. Trademarks and trade dress. We then worked on the graphics that help identify the Rich Dad brand. You may notice that most of our products have a similar theme, look, and feel. We use specific colors: purple, gray, black, and a few secondary colors. People associate the color schemes with the Rich Dad Company. If people infringe upon our trade dress or trademarks, which people often do, our legal team begins talking to them. Our trademarks and trade dress are assets called intellectual property that have great value all over the world. In China, they call Rich Dad the Purple Storm. The business takes off. Once the business was put together, the company began to take off. Orders started flying through the door. Cash flowed in. All debts were immediately paid off, and soon the company was bursting at the seams. We were forced to buy an office building to house a growing company. Rich Dad Poor Dad made the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times bestseller lists, one of the few books on the lists not published by the large publishing houses. Publishing houses started calling, offering us a lot of money to sign with them. Oprah's show called, and in the summer of 2000, after I was on her program, the company really exploded. Almost overnight, we became an international success. How to expand a business. There are many ways a business can expand. 1. Replicate the entire BI triangle. Basically, once you work the bugs out of the first business, you open more of them. Many retailers and restaurants expand this way. In many cities, there are restaurants that have 3 or 4 successful stores located throughout the city. In order to grow bigger, the leader may need to change leaders. Often, the owner will sell to a bigger company and start over again. 2. Franchise. McDonald's is the most famous example of expansion via franchising. 3. Take the company public through an IPO. With funds from places like Wall Street, the company can tap into a virtually unlimited supply of money as long as the company keeps on expanding. 4. License the products. This is the way we designed the Rich Dad Company to expand. Licensing is basically allowing another business to produce your products. As our success grew, our licensing, which is the legal level of the business, expanded to 42 different languages in over 55 countries. It costs us no money to produce or store the books. We do not need a giant warehouse, an extensive sales force, or a large inventory to ship product around the world. The Single Tactic Multiple Strategy Plan. My training as a military officer required that we know the difference between a tactic and a strategy. In very simple terms, a tactic is what you do. A strategy is the plan on how to get the tactic done. One of my military science instructors was adamant about the importance of using a single tactic, multiple strategy plan of warfare to win. He would say, a military leader must focus on one objective or tactic. He must only want to do one thing. Everything else is a strategy on how to get that one tactic done. He would then use examples of military conflict after military conflict that was won by the leader that had the best strategies focused on a single tactic. When I entered the business world, I carried his lessons with me. Soon, I began to see that companies that used the single tactic, multiple strategy type of planning were companies that won in business. For example, Domino's Pizza started with a single tactic to beat its competition. To distinguish itself in the pizza wars, Domino's designed a company around a single tactic. That tactic was to promise pizza in 30 minutes or less. An entire business was designed around that single promise, a single tactic. To make that single tactic a reality, the company then had multiple strategic plans. Once Domino's entered the marketplace, it immediately began taking market share from its competitors. Competitors, such as Pizza Hut, could not compete because the business was not designed to meet such a promise. To combat Domino's, Pizza Hut increased advertising, the communications level, to announce new and different types of pizza. The product level. The pizza wars were on. Pizza Hut was fighting with a better product. Domino's was fighting with a guaranteed faster delivery. If you have read Jim Collins' book Good to Great, you will notice that many of the great companies have single tactics. Jim Collins does not call it a single tactic, multiple strategy way of winning. Instead, he calls it the hedgehog principle. In his book, he uses Walmart's single tactic, the lowest price for good products, as the reason it beats its competitors who have multiple tactics and even more strategies. In other words, Walmart's competitors simply have not clearly defined their own single winning tactic. Walmart's entire business is focused on one promise, a promise customers clearly like. That means Walmart does not win in the product category. Like Domino's, it wins in the system level of the BI triangle. You may recall that Thomas Edison won the electric light battle at the system level, not at the product level. Henry Ford also won at the system level. He simply mass-produced low-priced cars for the working family. He never promised the best-made cars. He just promised the best-priced cars, and then designed a business around his promise. McDonald's does not produce the best hamburger. Ray Kroc built a business around the idea of selling the best franchise to people who want to own a franchise. When I was in the Arizona mountains, the very simple business plan I came up with was based upon one single tactic and 3 strategies. The first page of the simple 2-page plan looked like this. Tactic: play the cash flow game. Strategies: 1. Write a book. 2. Do an infomercial. 3. Teach investment seminars using the game. On the second page, I wrote a brief plan on how I thought I could accomplish the 3 strategies. The single tactic was to get as many people as possible to play the game. I knew that if I created a great game and people played it, their lives would change. They would be able to see another world of opportunity. They would be less inclined to blindly turn their money over to people they thought were experts, such as mutual fund managers, and might be inspired to become their own financial experts. That was it. I knew, if successful, I would make money from the strategies as well as the single tactic. A low-risk idea. The first lesson: always have a low-risk idea or strategy to fall back on. Rich Dad taught me that whenever you start a business or invest in something, you need to have a low-risk idea. For example, when investing in real estate, if the investment paid me something each and every month, that was a low-risk investment. Even if the property did not go up in value, I was still receiving some compensation for my investment dollars. The strategy of teaching investment seminars using the game was my low-risk idea. Since I came from the seminar business, I knew that if the other two strategies did not work and no one wanted my game, I could recoup my investment in the product development of the game simply by putting on investment seminars. Simply put, a low-risk idea is something you know you can do. Design a business that can do something that no other business can do. The second lesson: design the business around a unique tactical advantage. In my plan, my tactic was to play the game so I virtually eliminated all competition. I eliminated all competition because if the legal work was strong, no one else could do what our business did.